Cool, brother. All right. I think we go ahead and got it live. Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. It's your boy Murdoch. We're back with yet another Make It Make Sense Monday. Again, my name is Anthony Murdoch II. I go by Murdoch. I'm a purpose-driven, action-oriented servant leader and proud product of Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm a Juris Doctorate candidate at the IU McKinney School of Law here in Indianapolis, and also the owner of four businesses here in the city as well, one of which being the Side Hustle Economy Company, where our mission is to empower Black side hustlers to achieve their entrepreneurial dreams through exposure, education, and equipment. And we can talk about education through our five different programs and equipment by connecting Black side hustlers like yourself with lawyers and accountants and marketers and therapists. But we got to do the exposure first. There's so many people who don't dream by any means because they haven't seen something worth dreaming about. And so every Monday on Make It Make Sense Monday, we lock in and clock in with someone who is beautiful, bold, and Black in one of those four practice areas, right? The legal space, the financial space, the marketing space, or the mental health space, to have a critical conversation, not about their competencies, but about their story. And today is no different. This is a family friend, and I was telling him before he went live, I don't even know if you remember me because it's been such a long time since we tapped in person. But being the kind of brother that he is, he did, and I look forward to rehash on some old memories, but then also talk about the present and then also the promise in the future, because what he's doing in our community is incredible. So again, without further ado, I'm gonna introduce y'all to a good friend, a brother, someone who cares deeply about mental health in a number of different capacities. Nathan McGuire, how you doing, brother?
I'm excited, thankful. I was telling you earlier, man, you have no idea how old you making me feel right now. Just watching you and your sister grow up, and you're a full man, full beard, empowering people, and so yeah, full beard, man. This is crazy, man. So
You buddy.
just I've known you go way back, man. So
Yep,
this
yep,
is
yep.
really deep. But it's really impressive, Anthony, to watch everything you're doing. And for me, the most important part is living a purpose-filled life, and then wanting to share that with your brothers and sisters, how to do that. So, I mean, I know that runs in your family to be corporate, but also ministry-driven at the same time. So it's awesome to watch you do the same thing.
Oh, man, it's love, Doc. And you right, man. There's always this connection between purpose, right, and this professional work. And you're right, being born and raised in the church myself, I think we all do kingdom work in our own capacities.
Mhm.
And for me, that comes with doing work like this, right? Because I see divinity, I see God in everyday creations. And I think that God works in some beautiful and mysterious ways. And he's definitely working through you. And while this isn't a spiritual podcast, I think my sister has that down pat for sure. I do think that there is a divinely oriented purpose that's placed on the people that we put on this platform. And you're definitely not excluded from that. And so I think to get the conversation officially started, brother, I just wanted to ask, how, when, and why, those three questions, did you start this work? Just so that the people have some context for our conversation today.
So, man, it started actually with me being involved in youth ministry. I was involved in youth ministry. I was also at the time working as an admissions counselor at Crossroads Bible College. Deep, knee deep in ministry. And then something kept happening to me, Anthony, over and over again. I would try to do my work, but in the middle of doing my work, people are constantly making and setting appointments to talk to me about life, to help them navigate their family. I'm constantly counseling, right? And it's natural for me. It's kind of easy, but it's getting in the way of my work, right? So this side thing I'm doing is constantly getting in the way. And I got to the point. I said, you know what, man, I need to be getting paid for this. I'm doing this constantly. I need to be getting paid for this. I love this. What this part, like I do all this other stuff, but this part is me. Like I just do it naturally. I'm doing it constantly. How do I get paid for that? Anthony, I went from there and I literally went online. I remember being at my job as a missions counselor. I'm not getting paid for the youth ministry work I'm doing. And so I'm at work, I type in counselor. therapists, how much they make an hour, how do you get trained? And, I couldn't believe it, but CTS, Christian Theological Seminary, was right down the street from me and was kind of this world renowned school that dealt with not only therapy, but also the integration of psychology, of divinity. So the spirituality component and the psychological clinical component coming together, which was rare. And I didn't realize that at the time. So I started to research that. I go to school. Um, in the middle of school, I start to learn how rare it is that we're even in this work as African Americans. I get done with school, and right in the middle of it, you can't really work full time and do this. So that was driving me crazy because I'm a Black man. I got a family. You're trying to tell me I can't work. So it's like this isn't going together. So I'm doing paper routes. I'm doing all this stuff, stressing out. I get an opportunity, Anthony, to work with at this place called Center Point. And I have to give them a lot of credit because when I worked there, most of the time when you get out of school and you have an MFT degree, you end up in like a big organization where you're kind of just churning out people and doing notes. You're not really able to focus on the work. Well, this was the first church, one of the first churches that had a full clinical practice within the church. So it was both fully a church and both fully a professional clinical practice. So I was there really learning how to do this thing. While I'm there, I started to look for other Black men that do this work that had an MFT degree. When I was doing that, I kept talking to people asking, hey, tell me another Black male that does this work. And they would say, well, I know one. And I would say, who? They would say, Nathan, you. Be like, man, you got to be kidding me, man. So, Anthony, for about 4 or 5 years, I was the only Black man in Indianapolis with an MFT degree. And I was losing it, man. So after that, just out of wanting to get the word out and trying to educate, because this is before they start to attack the stigma. This is like in 2008, talking about how important mental health is. I was in it where people were thinking you weren't saved if you were a Christian and being in psychology, and churches were kind of talking crazy. They didn't understand it, so I was kind of losing it, man. And I was on the radio. I went on the 1310, had a show called The Love Connection. But this was all out of a passion to get the word out to help people understand. You can't enjoy anything if you don't have mental health. You can't enjoy what you have without mental health. The Bible says things like, confess your faults one to another that ye may be healed. It goes over people's minds. It doesn't say go to church. Doesn't say tithe. It doesn't say get saved. It says that confess your faults. So you got to do all those things, but in order to be healed, you got to talk to people and share what you're going through, or you'll keep all these things and have things like anxiety and depression. So the word really started to break down psychology, and psychology started to break down the word. So the biggest thing though that happened to me is this: when I was working at Centerpoint, I started to have kind of friction there about some of the work, about how things were practicing. I'm also the first African American MFT in the city, right? Number one. I'm the only Black person at this place I'm working, and this is before Black Lives Matter and the Me Too movement. So I'm also there when people aren't even dealing with these social justice issues, but I'm seeing them. They're screaming at me because I'm also the first Black man dealing with people's minds, Black and white. So I'm coming with a perspective, man, that I didn't realize no one's ever hearing, because I'm the first one doing what I'm doing. So I'm like trailblazing at the same time, and I'm trying to figure out, like, am I trailblazing? Am I the only one doing this? Do my pastors know what I'm talking about? Do they understand this? Like, do white people understand that if nobody's holding them accountable, that nobody's in their mind? One time, man, I'll tell you this story. I'm working with, and my name is Nathaniel McGuire, right? So I'm getting all these clients, but they don't even know I'm Black till they see me face to face. Right? So I'm dealing with all these issues, and I remember going to my colleagues saying, "Hey, there's books on what's wrong with African Americans, what's wrong with first and second generation immigrants. Where's the books on what's wrong with my white brothers and sisters and the unique issues that they go through? What's wrong with them? Like, where are the books at?" And basically, they started to get to the point like, Nathan, you're right. Like, yeah, I guess we're coming at it as if there's nothing wrong with us and there's something wrong with everybody else. So I start dealing with that post-traumatic slave disorder and some of the unique stress and anxieties that we have. And but when I left there, Anthony, that's when everything started for me. And the reason I left, I want to confess to you, that's why I love when I see young men who are entrepreneurs. I, as a young Black man, did not see in my family people have their own business. I saw them go to get a good job. And that's what I inspired to do. And at the time, when I left CTS, had the best job you could get, which was working at this place. And I didn't even know that. And people were jealous, right? This is one of the first time where affirmative action worked for me. They needed a person of color doing therapy, and I was it. And so I wanted to keep this job forever. You could make six figures as a counselor working there. You can't always do that when you come out. So that was a big deal for me, right? I could provide for my family. When it didn't work out and I left there, that's when everything changed for me. My perspective, understanding how to think for myself, understanding that I'm really trying to work this one job to please these people, and I'm not thinking like it's limitless of what I could do, all the businesses I can have, um, all the different ways in which I can work. I don't have to just work with individuals. I can work with churches and universities. I can work with businesses. All of these things started to come to me, and then Anthony, I started to realize my value. And so that's when things changed for me. Because there's one thing, working and being a clinician. There was another thing having my own practice and understanding what it meant to be an entrepreneur and run my business. So that's how this thing got started. But I was making that point where I didn't really have the faith to do it myself. It didn't work out. And then when I was out there by myself, then it started to come to me like this is what God wanted me to do, and I didn't realize.
Yeah, bro. I mean, one, I appreciate your honesty, your vulnerability, and you said so much there, and I want to kind of unpack some of the things that you said. But one thing I heard you say, and I think because we've probably done about 7 of these episodes by now. I think I've probably heard this across every one of the interviews, and that's with attorneys, with accountants, with marketers, and then therapists like yourself. We had Hazel come on last month. She's actually the one that recommended that you come on. So shout out to Hazel. Y'all are a product of the same institution, CTS. And
That's my sister right there.
yeah, solid sister, bro. Solid sister. And the thing that's consistent across each of you is this idea of you were doing something, and then that purpose piece started to call, right? And each of you answered that call in different degrees, right? I think the most immediate, when I think back to the 7 interviews, Maurice Scott was probably the one who answered that call the quickest. He didn't convert from one industry to another. He went to law school, became an attorney, and became more and more successful. But then I think about me being on the completely other side of the spectrum, where you, like I said, you see me grow up. That I wanted to be an attorney since I was in middle school. 2008, right? The month before Obama was elected was when I watched a situation on CNN that said I want to become an attorney because what I see is happening to folks who look just like me in so many different parts of this country. I said, my elementary understanding of what race meant in this country was like, didn't Dr. King die so that this kind of stuff doesn't have to happen? Obviously, my understanding has become much more critical since then, but to a 10, 11, 12-year-old young man who's surrounded by Black people, it was that elementary because I'm surrounded by it. And now I got 4 businesses. And so this whole law school thing is almost secondary because entrepreneurship has taken so much. So there's 2 different sides of the spectrum, but all of us had this moment where the thing that we thought that we'd pursue comes in the collision with purpose. And the question becomes, how do we respond? And I think that when you brought this up too, you're not just talking about as persons generally, but as Black folks specifically. How do we answer that question of purpose when we have so many responsibilities to ourselves, to our immediate families, our immediate communities, and then to our community in a greater capacity? Those things become difficult, right? And then you talk about this relationship between the spiritual, right? But then also this mental piece. My trainer, he trains, he's really a wellness instructor. We definitely do the physical stuff. but he prides himself on the three pillars: the mind, the body, and the spirit. And then you talked about this relationship between the mind and the spirit, because some folks get that mind part right, but then are lacking that spirit piece. And then some folks got all the spirit piece, like you had talked about. The church will talk. The church will gonna talk that talk. But then there's this radical disconnect with this thing called mental health. So much so, there's a stigma associated with talking about that mind stuff in these spiritual spaces. And I think that when someone hears your story and sees what it is you went through to get to where you are now, it's empowering, which leads me right to my next question. Because something else that you had talked about, Doc, was you had a number of side hustles on your way to making this your main hustle. You feel me?
That's
And so
right.
can you kind of talk about how you transitioned from that admissions counselor doing the youth ministry piece to now you're doing this. This is what you do. Like, but you talk about paper routes, man. You talk about a lot in there. So just you kind of
Yeah.
encourage the people, Doc. Maybe give them two or three things to keep them
Yes.
encouraged as they make that transition.
First, I want to say, Anthony, what you're doing is so powerful because it's a spiritual connotation. We overcome him by the blood of the Lamb. That's Jesus, 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 and the word of our testimony, the story.
That
The
second
story
piece,
makes
Doc.
it
Yeah,
plain.
Doc. Yeah,
Right,
Doc.
right. The second piece is the most powerful. It's what did he do for you and how did you do it? See, I can argue about Jesus, but I can't really argue what he is doing, what he said Jesus empowered him to do. And then if he can do it, then I can do it too. It's that word of the testimony that is the most powerful. So let me testify. Okay. One of the things that I started learning how to do, man, was I learned this thing in the process, man. It's another spiritual thing. Your gift makes room for you. Anthony, I didn't realize, a lot of us don't realize. So you realized your gifts early. I did not realize that empathy and compassion was a gift. I was doing it all the time. There's this thing called emotional intelligence that I had that was so simple. And I learned that what people call common sense, when you keep saying something's common sense, what you don't realize is no, it is not. It's common sense to you, right? It ain't common sense to everybody else. It's common sense to you. And when you find yourself, so then it moved into when I started to understand this gifting and understand these things, now I help people find their gift and find their purpose. So let me give you a simple illustration I use to help people understand how simple a gift is. It's something you're doing all the time. I tell this story about my buddy. He had a photographic memory, right? He could just remember everything, Anthony, to the point where, we were kind of stupid to him because he remembered everything, right? And I looked at him one day and I said, hey, man, what is it like for you to remember things? And he looked at me and said, what do you mean? And I was like, man, what do you mean? I said, let me say this one more time. What is it like for you to remember things? He said, what do you mean? It dawned on me, Anthony, he ain't got to try to remember nothing. He has a photographic memory. He's not trying. He didn't go to school to get that. It's a gift. He's just doing it. He turns to me and looks at me and he says, man, you always have empathy and compassion for people. How do you do that? I looked at him and I said, what do you mean? I said, what do you mean? Then I was like, no wonder you're a jerk. You don't have empathy and compassion for people, right? Think about it. He has a great memory and doesn't have empathy and compassion for people, right? So, I mean, he was my homie. What we would do sometimes, somebody was getting on our nerves, we turned them over to him and he would eat them up, okay? Because he would do that, right? Then they turn them back over to me to put them back together, right? But Anthony, in school, they never really recognize emotional intelligence, right? So I didn't know I had this extraordinary gift. I didn't know it until I was in school, and they would say things like, Nathan, it's like you've been doing all this. It's like you've been counseling your whole life. Guess what? I have. I have been counseling my whole life. People just sit down and talk to me and start telling me everything. And I hear everything that they are saying and where I need to go. But a lot of times, Anthony, it has to do with this thing where people do not realize that they have a gift. They underestimate it, overlook it, don't pay attention to it. In our families, a lot of times, we recognize certain gifts, athletic gifts, comedic gifts, right? Entertaining gifts. We don't recognize all these other administrative gifts. I can't tell you how many times, man, I'm talking to a sister in my office and I'm listening to her story and she's like, yeah, this gets on my nerves, this gets on my nerves. And I went through this, but yeah, I went through school. What kind of grades you get in school? A's and B's. And you were going through this, and that. Is school hard for you? No. Um, Did you go to undergrad? Well, I'm getting my associates, but I don't care. I mean, what kind of grade you getting? Straight A's? Sister, do you realize you need to go and into any school and that you need to get a master's degree and then you need to get your doctorate degree because it's not even stressful for you. I've talked to so many women that I end up helping getting a doctorate or find their gift. Hazel was one of them, talking to me extraordinary. And I'm like, girl, do you realize how good you are? Like like how your mind works, what you hear and what you see, how easy. She's like, yeah, yeah. When I work, that's kind of my favorite part, overlooking how brilliant she is because we're not always pushed in these gifted areas that we had. So the first thing was I recognized that, Anthony, I'm doing this all day anyway. I might as well get paid for it because I'm doing it all day, every day anyway. So I had to first recognize my gift, and then I had to get the education. Now, the thing that keeps us, once we might think we have a gift or we start paying attention to it, the thing that keeps us from going down that road is fear. God has not given us the spirit of fear, but power, love, and a sound mind, right? Fear causes you to fight, flight, or be paralyzed. It means that it starts telling you what you can't afford or what you don't got time for, or what you can't do. I started to realize that fear actually was telling me what to do by hearing what it was fixating on that I couldn't do. And when I recognized that it kept going at me that I couldn't do this, I realized that's exactly what I'm supposed to do. So now, Anthony, I fear not another text is, the fear of the Lord is wisdom, right? I don't fear that I can't do this or can't do that. I fear when the Lord is giving me this purpose and telling me I can do it. I fear not doing that. I go at that with all my heart. And when I hear fear constantly telling me to worry, to not do something, that I can't do something, I now know not only can I do it, sir, I'm created to do it, right? That gives confidence and takes all the fear away. So the main thing that led me to do it, man, was when I realized that I was really gifted in this area and that I love doing this, and I wanted to know how can I make what I love my career, right? How can I turn this thing I'm doing on the side my career? And I found that this was it. When I saw this program, the CTS program, it was like, this is it. I can get in here, I can go to school, and I can now make now I'll tell you this. Even when I did that, um, it then went into um, doing it for myself, right? So that was the next journey. I got this shingle. I was doing it well. I'm gifted. I like 100%, Anthony, of what I was doing. It wasn't like I like 20% of it, and then the 80% was getting on my nerves. I was in a situation where I loved 100% of what I was doing. And then it came to this point that, how can I do more of this and do it for myself? Okay. So the first thing I want to tell people is to recognize what is that thing you're always doing that you think is common sense, that's simple to you. And you get mad when you see other people doing it and you're like always criticizing, thinking they're not doing it well, but it's because you're supposed to be doing it. And instead of criticizing them, why don't you find a way that you can do it? But pay attention to that thing you just do. And it's not even work. It's not even that hard for you to do. You just do it. Once you recognize that that thing is called your gift, and then you take your gift and maximize on it, get more education around it, and just go do it. Because when you just do your gift, room is made for you. But I just found, Anthony, a big part of it is people don't even recognize when they're even gifted at something.
Man, you said a lot there, Doc. I mean, one, this, and I think it all revolves around one of the first things you said, that common sense ain't common. And that's something that, my mama said growing up, and it was funny when she said it. But the older I got, I'm like, nah, that's real. And it's something, the older you get, you realize a lot of people got book smart. They ain't got no street smart. And then there's some folks who, you can take a brother out the hood, but you can't take the hood out the brother. And sometimes that hood and that brother will remove him from the opportunities that he said he wants to pursue. So this idea that common sense ain't common is crucial. And I think that goes to the last thing you just said. The thing that's common sense for you may bring you the capital you need to bring your purpose to life. But because
That's
it's
right.
so common, we miss it. Right. And I think that goes back to just not taking anything for granted. Right. I think if I've learned anything on my journey so far, and I'm just 25, you feel me? Grace, prayerfully, I got another 25, 50 years left in me, right? But if I've learned anything, it's just not to take anything for granted. Because what I have today can be gone tomorrow. And the other thing too, Doc, is things are never as good as they seem, right?
Mm,
Social media can make people look like they got it all going on.
that's right.
I mean, social media can do a lot, and I think it's an incredible tool. You feel me? I use it for
Mm-hmm.
this. It helps me it lets me build community, especially during COVID. You know what I mean? It's a way to be able to tap in with people. But at the same time, man, these illusions, brother, are powerful, and they can confuse people, and they think that social media is real life, and it's like, no, I will pull up on you because you're gonna stop talking to me like this on social media. That may
That's
not
right.
be the most mentally healthy things to say, but it goes back to what you said about this idea that empathy and compassion are genuinely gifts. And then you have this incredible piece about how in our community we've stigmatized certain gifts
Yes.
and not even calling them gifts. And so
Yes.
there are skill sets, there are competencies, there are assets that we can leverage that we've deemed to not be powerful. And
That's
so
right.
what opportunities, what industries are we missing out? You talked about for the longest, you were the only brother who was also an MFT in Indianapolis. And again, I'm not saying brothers out here walking around like you, but man, I'm sure there was a brother in middle school, in high school, who was called a punk, who was called soft, who had an incredible ability to connect with people and
That's
develop
right.
genuine relationships. But because of so many different labels and terms, he was discouraged from it. And who knows
That's
what
right.
that brother's doing right now? There could be a very compassionate banker who could have an incredible practice, but is never going to do it because of what happened early. And I think that your story, which goes back to my last piece that you had talked about, this idea of the back end of that verse, right? That testimony piece, man.
Yes.
When you look at my brand, everything I do revolves around stories. I believe that
Mm,
Black stories specifically are the assets that break generational curses and build generational wealth. I
come
think
on,
our
man.
stories are our greatest asset because no one else has them. No matter how proximal a person is to you, your story can't be mimicked. You know what I mean? And that's for
Period.
different reasons. And so to hear you talk about the power in the story, right, reminds me that we're in the right realm for the conversation, which leads me to my next question, Doc. And it's everybody, if we're going to have a conversation about physical health and about hygiene and about financial health, we got to have a conversation about mental health. And
Yes.
so, what I'm asking you is, what are the three things people should keep in mind when trying to work with somebody in your industry? Because there's a lot of people who are saying they can do a lot of things, right? And we got to know how to pick the real from the fake from the real. And just, man, what are two or three things that people should keep in mind when trying to decide who they should work with on improving their mental health, man?
So listen, the first thing I want to say is that when it comes to mental health, I can't wait, Anthony, till it becomes um, just a casual understanding, meaning that there was a time in the 50s where we didn't understand that smoking cigarettes caused cancer, and then secondhand smoke can kill your kids too, right? So if I still feel like I'm in the 50s, right? Or I'm walking around talking to people like, man, you shouldn't smoke. They're like, man, that's that liberal stuff, man. I can smoke some cigarettes. You know that'll kill you. Man, who said? That's a conspiracy. Man, you got your kids in the car and you smoking. I cracked the window, man. I mean, we hot boxing, but I'm cracking the window. It's like that's the times I feel that we are still in where people don't understand that mental health is not optional. If you have a, if you know, how do you know you have good teeth, right? You go to the dentist, right? How do you know if your heart is good? You go to the doctor. You don't say, well, I don't like going to the doctor. I wasn't feeling that doctor. No, you go and find the doctor that you're feeling, but you're going to find a doctor. You're going to find a dentist. Anthony, right now we're in a mental health crisis where the average person doesn't even understand mental health. And COVID, because it made everybody stop being busy, people had to deal with the fact that they are running from things in their mind for the first time in a long time in our country. And so all these mental health things came to light because I haven't grieved. I haven't got over that trauma that happened to me and had to think about it. So the first thing I want to do is give people some indicators of why you need it and show you how desperate it is. So one of the things I tell people is you are the same age emotionally as when you experienced your first trauma. See, you caught that immediately. Not everybody catches that. Okay. You're the same age emotionally as when you received or experienced your first trauma. Um, that means that when you get emotional, you might turn into a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old, a 12-year-old. Right now in this country, all we see are children. I don't care if they're in the pulpit. I don't care if in the politics, and all they care about is their feelings and how they feel, has nothing to do with facts. The word of God says something powerful that I did not understand, Anthony, until I went into the world of psychology. Because Paul, we forget how educated he was, right? He studied with the Greeks and the Jews. We're talking about Socrates, Plato, right? He was also very fluent in the Jewish traditions, but he was brilliant. In essence, he studied the Suke. He was a psychologist, and he said things like this: when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I reasoned as a child, but now I put away childish things, right? What he's talking about there is arrested development. It means that when you get traumatized at a young age and you don't get help, that means you're literally arrested at that emotional age. And therapists help go back in time to unrest you so you can put away childish things. American Christianity has not been dealing with that, man. So we have very childish people that are spiritual and very childish people that call themselves adults in all walks of life. And they're really big children. If your father wasn't Jesus and your mother wasn't Mary, somewhere, somehow, you probably experienced some trauma. Now, let me tell you what's deep about everything you're saying. Because you have healthy parents, Anthony, there's a lot of advantages you had and you're talking about them. So when you're talking about, I started this business, you name the story, but I had Black people that love me, that spoke into my life, right? So it means that when you're scared that you haven't experienced unconditional love, everything you do is based on condition. So you can't make no mistakes. You can't step out there and start a job. You got to get that job and work hard and do really well, and you can't make no mistakes. You're fearful of stepping out to do anything. But see, you have a foundation of love and encouragement. So it causes this inner belief that you can do things, you can make a mistake, you can get out there and try something, and it might not go well, but you can try again. So this is the reason we all need therapy, because we've experienced trauma on a level, especially Black people. We've experienced a trauma that we're still even trying to comprehend. All the things that have happened to us in this country and the constant stress and anxiety that we go through, even just being in corporate America, like when they rate the level of anxiety we go through. I remember when I was walking into this white space, I had no idea what that was doing to me, man. When I got my first business, I unlocked the door, I looked around, there was nobody, and I just screamed and cussed. I was like, ah, I'm free. I can dress how I want to dress, feel how I want to feel. I don't have to worry about how you feeling and trying to talk a certain way, not scare you, not do this. It was like, bro, I'm feeling myself. This is, boy, I didn't even understand, man. All that stuff I was going through that I couldn't feel myself, right? That all of those things, man, are addressed psychologically. So before I even get to like who you need to choose or whatever, Anthony, I'm like, bro, listen, y'all, I don't care. You just keep going and you find somebody and you don't stop until you find somebody that causes you to change. Just like you keep going to that dentist, you might not like him. You keep going to the doctor, you might not like her. You just find somebody to help you heal and exercise your mind the same way that you would do in exercising your body. And I can tell you that we all have issues. You find someone that can help you deal with those issues, but take advantage of anybody you can talk to help you master your mind and your emotions. Don't live life without dealing with that. make sure you take the opportunity to take advantage of that. Most of us have insurance where they'll pay for it. Some of you have in your job where they'll pay for a certain amount. Take advantage of that. I promise you, if you're not, you doing something to somebody and yourself because you got something going on up here that you're totally not aware of. And my job is to help my people understand that's how we overcome, is that we have to deal with how many scriptures Anthony deals with the mind, right? The mind of Christ. How can you take thoughts captive if you're not aware of what's in your mind to take captive? How can you, when it says you're judging the speck in your brother's eye, when you have a plank in your own eye? But what if you can't see yourself? What if you don't have any self-awareness, right? What if you have a childhood disorder that causes you to be the victim all the time and you don't know it, right? All of these things are we deal with in psychology that has not been dealt with in the church. And so we deal a lot with the seen. The Bible says, don't deal with the seen, deal with the unseen. For the seen is temporal and the unseen is eternal. Well, my job is to look at the unseen that's happening in your soul and your psyche that you don't see. And we take a journey to see those things. And we all need to do that, especially Black or white. I don't care who you are. If you live in the United States of America, we are constantly dealing with a level of trauma that we don't understand. So my first thing is, yeah, just go and then find someone that's challenging you. Find someone that is not just telling you what you want to hear, but they're causing you to grow. And the truth is, Anthony, if they're good, it should be a little uncomfortable. It should just be a little uncomfortable. It should challenge you, but it should answer questions that you have. If you don't get any insight when you come out of therapy, you need to go somewhere else. Okay, because you need to be getting insight into why you do what you do, why you feel what you feel, and you need to have a sense that this person, they get me, they get where I'm at. But my main thing is I just challenge people to go because, Anthony, we have so many excuses of why we don't need to go, or we just don't understand the necessity of it. What I started to find doing this work is the people who have always done this work historically are the affluent, Anthony. That's why they're affluent, because they are sitting back and making sure they're healing in their mind. Even the Sopranos back in the day, right? The gangsters would go to the head doctor because they know they needed to get their mind right in order to deal with what they're dealing with. They would have way too much PTSD and start snapping and killing the wrong people if they're not getting their mind right. So this work gets your mind right and allows you to experience the highest level of consciousness, so then that you can enjoy what you have.
Yeah, man, bro, so many gems, bro, so many gems. I think to go back to what you said last, this idea of this relationship between class and access to mental health, right? And this country is much quicker to talk about class than it is race, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But capitalism is racism's greatest accountability partner, right? They're not in any way disconnected. We live in a country with a racial wealth gap, not just a wealth gap. And that's why folks like yourself and Hazel and so many others who are going to be on the Make It Make Sense Monday podcast are so important, because you all stand in the intersection, as Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw talks about, right? Between so many different identities, and those identities at one time were barriers, and you all are breaking those barriers simply by your presence, right? But then you're just not here in terms of presence, but then you give us gifts, presence in your words, and you say things like, we are stuck in the 50s. You feel like you're stuck in the 50s within your industry, within this country, because the same way that at one point we would not, because we refused to, because of its cultural connections, acknowledge the impact that nicotine had on our health.
Right.
We're doing the same thing now with the things that we watch, the things that we say, the algorithms that exist. So no, I mean, that was pivotal. And then you use that, right, as this connection point to saying, I feel like we are arrested in our development, if you will, from a societal perspective, from mental health. But there's also a bunch of kids, old kids, grown kids who are arrested in their mental health, wellness development too. And you see it in so many different capacities. And it's, we don't believe in the spirit of fear like you talked about before. So I won't say we're frightened, but it is alarming to know that mental health and wellness is not a requirement for leadership.
Come
Because
on,
if it
man.
was, there would be a lot of people who would not be in leadership positions. And I don't know about you, man, but that's one of the things that consistently keeps me humble. You know what I mean? Because, you know, people can look at me and how well, one, a lot of people don't know me. People think they know me, but they don't know me. But if we're gonna be real about it, but you know, people can look at me from one perspective and be like, you know, he grew up around this, and this, he should be good. The other people can think around he grew up around this, and this, and he's not that good. But at the end of the day, no one knows what happens inside a year.
That's
I
right.
think that we're getting to a place in our community, as much as we have so much more to go, because of how much we've been through and how fast we make progress as a people, which is also something we can't ignore. Our ability to progress is incredible,
It's
considering our
phenomenal.
predicament. Yeah, it's that trauma comes in so many different ways, right? One of the reasons why when you said this talked about this idea of arrested development was powerful because when I started going to a therapist, that was like my birthday present to myself. I went to my first therapy appointment on my 25th birthday. And something that bro told me was we are all catering to our inner child, right? And I'd heard that term before, but it took time to understand really what that meant. And that's exactly what you're speaking to, right? There's a younger version of myself that I'm constantly speaking to. Honestly, not even just talking to, and I don't want to get too deep in this because this is a therapy session, but
No,
I'm
no, let the people know, man. This is beautiful what you're saying.
no
This is
for
the most
sure.
important part.
And it really not just speaking to him, but like seeking his approval. Like something I talked
Yeah,
about Shorty about a lot is I think about Anthony Murdoch the third. You feel me? Anthony Murdoch the fourth. Like to what extent do my decisions impact him? In the same way when my pops was my age, he may have been thinking about it a little bit different, but he was like, I'm making decisions today for my son that's to come at some point, right? And I begin to think about the third or the fourth. I just got to think about younger versions of Anthony Murdoch the second, because there was
yeah,
an Anthony Murdoch the second in first grade, in second grade, in the fifth
that's
grade, who
right.
went through things. You know what I'm saying? The first time I got called out of my name, you feel me? The first time I felt like I didn't get the love, man. You know, especially as young black men, bro, you just go through things that
That's right.
we say are requirements for your development, right? Like we have made certain kinds of trauma essential to your growth. They're like I'm Greek, I'm an alpha, right? And so I think about what does it mean to pledge and how hard you have to work to pledge an organization. There's certain things, there's like a pledging process to become a black man too, that have been institutionalized in what makes you who you are. And while some of those things do lead to incredible skill sets and traits, bro, some of those things crumble you on the way to
Come
getting
on, man.
there.
That's
And so I just again when you were talking, like I said, you were speaking to that like intentionally and directly, which is why to go back to the top of the conversation, when you were saying that empathy and compassion are gifts, right? Because there's some things, I'll put it like this: some things simply are not developed. Like there are some
that's right.
skill sets that if you have them, it's only by the grace of God. You feel me? Because the world ain't give it to you. Because we don't live in a world where those kinds of things are incubated, especially not in our community. You feel me? A lot of those traits are antithetical to what it means to be us. And so to have it and to do it naturally, it has to be something that's divine. It has to be something that's extraterrestrial because big dog is not natural. It's
No,
not normal.
no.
And I'm getting off my plane to ask my next question, but I'm just giving context from the next question and reflecting on your response. But I think now I think I know that's why these kind of conversations are so important because someone can get on here. And that's also why we don't get on here and I don't ask attorneys to talk about laws. I don't ask financial people to talk about tax code. I don't ask marketers to get on here and start talking about the algorithm. I want to know about people's story because
Yeah,
there's going to be something in your story that does something that a law for a lawyer, a tax code for an accountant, or an algorithm for a marketer simply could not do, right?
that's right.
And that's my next question. Man, if it's a word of encouragement, a piece of advice, or a lesson that you learned a little bit too late for the entrepreneurs that's watching, because you've been through so much, but you have empathy and compassion as a gift, you know. So just can you give the people something
Mm,
to encourage them to keep going and keep pushing and keep striving? Because it's hard out here, bro. It's hard out
come
here.
on, man. Um, uh, One of the main things that when I look back, you're hitting it on the head when you talk about the empathy and compassion. The main thing that I try to help people understand is do not belittle that simple thing that you just do. And if you just do something that is natural to you, think about what would it be like to make this a career, no matter what it is. Like you got to understand that your gift makes room for you, no matter what it is. Your gift, whatever that is, it will make room for you. I would also say this, Anthony, to people. I mean, I know this is that this is both a business and spiritual thing, but I would encourage people to meditate and pray. And whether you believe in God or the universe, your higher power, you simply say, make it clear to me what my gift is. Make it clear to me. And then go after that thing like a madman and a mad woman, right? A mad whatever, right? Go after that with all your heart and passion, because all you're going to discover is when you do that thing, if you're gifted at it, it will make room. And it's just that simple. One of the things that we don't understand when we're dealing and we see somebody out there acting crazy or they're constantly into trouble and we don't understand why things keep working out for them, we forget this principle. They just keep, no matter what, how stupid they look, they just keep using their gift. They just keep, whether it's making music or flipping in front of the screen or doing little silly dances. They don't care. They just keep doing their gift, doing their gift, doing their gift. They're not trying to be perfect. The next thing you know, you start looking at the background, it starts changing. The house, the cars starts because they just keep doing their gift and doing their gift, and money and things keep adding to it. But I will say, just realize that no matter how small your gift is, do it with all of your heart. Okay. Because that gift, whatever it is, makes room for you. And the way to recognize it is when you just keep getting upset about other people doing that. And you're like, they should do it like this or they should do it like that. And you don't realize you're seeing that because you're gifted at it. So whatever in the world is making you mad, it might mean you're created to change that. And to me, that's what Anthony said. He's like, hey, I'm gifted an entrepreneur, but this is passion. I got to change this. So maybe I need to tap in and realize that it's not just me being mad about that, it's righteous indignation. Something's telling me you're supposed to do something about that. Okay. And literally, it means that if someone keeps knocking on your door and causing you to be restless, it's what you call a calling. In the preaching world, we call that calling, right? Um, Anthony, we forget scriptures where they were looking for Jesus and they were asking him. They said your family's gone, and Jesus is like 14 or so. I love this story, and they say that he's looking for you, and he said they say your family's looking for you. He basically says, "Who's my family?" Right? He says, "I am about my father's business. I'm about my father's business." You think Mary's really my mama? You think Joseph's my daddy? Not really. They ain't really my mom and dad. Okay. I am about my father's business. My whole purpose in life is to come here, get this education, and then being about the purpose and the business. And that's all I'm about. I ain't about nothing else. And my friends and family will be created around that. But I'm about my father's business. So when something keeps knocking about that business or those t-shirts or to get in tech or whatever, if it keeps calling and calling and calling and calling and calling, that means you're supposed to do it. And it'll stress you out not doing it. It means you're created to do it. When you hear something telling you, oh, it's going to be so hard doing it, no, what you're not paying attention to is all the stress and anxiety you getting from not doing it. That's causing more anxiety, not doing it. Go do it and then see if that thing is lying to you, right? But quit spending your time thinking about how hard it will be and what you're going to lose, not realizing all the things you're losing not doing it, all the stress you're getting not doing it, all the anxiety and the frustration because other people are doing it and you're not doing it. Be fearful of not doing it, and then know that you're actually created to do it. I'm gonna leave it alone, sorry.
See, one of the beautiful parts about this, man, is I'm a wordsmith. I believe there's power in words. Obviously, that's biblical. but generally speaking, like it's just power in what you say to somebody, bro. And part of which that was like a double, triple entendre what you just said right there. Like this idea of don't be. I'm not even gonna repeat it because I'm gonna jack it up. But the point is, man, it's levels. It's levels to what you just said. And like, let's go back to what you talked about with fear earlier, right? Fear makes you not do things, but then you ignore all the fear you have and the other emotions you experience by not doing it.
That's
It's like
right.
big dog, like
That's right.
you could be scared of doing this, but I want you to think about all the anxiety and depression and loneliness you experience by not pursuing what you know is known at your heart.
That's
Like,
right.
am I saying it's gonna be easy? No, but bro,
Come on.
compare them
How,
joints. Like
yeah.
you.
How hard is it to sit here and not do that
Come
over and
on,
over again and get
exact, bro.
frustrated, not have the income you should because you won't step out and do it?
Come
How
on,
frustrating is that? Right? Who's telling you you can sit around and do that all day? You should be
come on,
afraid of that. That's
come
right.
on, come on. And I think the other thing you said, you said it's two or three different times. We didn't touch on it, but you said it two or three different times. This idea that your purpose, your gift, your conviction will make room for you. And to the people that's listening, understand that's not just this spiritual abstract manifestation piece. What part of what he's saying is when you pursue your purpose, passion almost always accompanies it.
That's
And
right.
when you become passionate about something, remember he talked about that mad person who just is so deeply invested in their gift, they will do what they do independent of what it makes them look like. And then that background starts to change. That background starts to change because their passion, their purpose made room for them. And the
That's right.
houses get bigger, the cars get more expensive, and more than that, the community becomes greater
That's
because
right.
they didn't stop because of how you looked at them. They understood that I'm gonna just keep doing what it is I know how to do. And the things around me will move accordingly,
Come on,
right?
man.
There's power in consistency. I mean, that's a whole separate conversation. This idea of what so many people never reach that point because they refuse to be consistent. And a lot of us are not consistent because we're scared of we're scared of the grind. We're scared of the hustle. I was listening to an interview this morning about that, like just the fear of the grind, which is again another conversation. But just that's just powerful. Like, but it goes back to what you said. Some of us are so scared to start. We never entertain the idea of the satisfaction that comes with finishing,
Come
right?
on,
And,
man.
and, and if there's nothing else that the people that's watching, I got like one more question for you. But if it's nothing else that the people get from the day, like that's something I want you to pull from what bro is talking about. Like the fear of starting is valid. It's real. There are consequences to black people pursuing their dreams, like in the
That's
past, in
right.
the present, and in the future. No one is debating that. But y'all, there are some unseen, intangible benefits that because they're unseen and intangible, they can't be quantified, right? They're like a qualitative, supernatural experience you have, like a high you can't get from these synthetic drugs that comes with pursuing your purpose because it came from a place that this world can't manufacture.
Mm.
And something, if y'all ain't getting nothing from what bro was saying, it's at least entertain the idea
Come on, man.
that there's something greater than the fear of what's making you not start. And
Which is
it's
called dreaming,
mm,
right? It's called a dream, a vision, right? When you remove the fear, and you
yeah,
said entertain, right? That's a beautiful word. Entertain. Well, what would it look like if I was doing this and I love what I did and I got paid? Entertain it. That's beautiful. That's called dreaming, right? Slaves could only vicariously live the dreams of the slave master. What causes you to be a slave is when you can't live your own dreams, right? That's slavery. And I didn't realize when I was in slavery. Even when I had a good job, sir, I was in slavery because I was dreaming what my slave master wanted me to do. I did not dream my dreams. And when I stepped out, I started to, I never forget, man, I was sitting and I heard the Lord say, dream again. It's like, man, I don't dream anymore. Dream again, Nathan. What all can you do? That's where empower, counseling, coaching, and spiritual direction came from. Before we just counseling, all these dreams came, all this other stuff I wanted to do, how I wanted to dress and what I wanted my office to look like how I wanted people to feel, what my brand wanted to be, right? I started to dream about all these other things, but I had to entertain the idea. One of the examples I want to give, Anthony, that you're hitting on the head, talking about being Black and stepping out there, COVID caused a lot of trauma and a lot of elevation for people. Because for the first time, they still haven't figured out why Americans won't go back to work and what's going on. It's like, I know why, psychologically. When people get a chance to stop the grind and think, they get a chance to see, wait a minute, I'm working for $2 more and it's taking my whole weekend and I'm missing my entire family. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'd rather make less. That's stupid. The heck, you called me for $1.50. Now you was killing that $1.50 when you was in the ground, but now you stopped and thought about it. Americans work the hardest, man, of any other country, developed country, work the longest, take less vacations, because what we don't realize, you said it earlier, man, capitalism was started. How was it started, sir? Through slavery. We were the capital. We forget that. That's the story. That's the truth. That's the foundation of it, where people master working you as hard as they can and giving you less and they take the most. America rewards businesses, not employees. America is set up to reward businesses. Who do they give all the tax breaks to and the power to? Who do they cut the breaks to? Who doesn't go to jail? Businesses and people who own businesses, not employees. And we don't know that because it was built on the backs of slavery. If we just tell the truth in the story, we could heal from it, but we keep lying, right? So that's a part of the story, is that people, they got a chance to sit back, and then people started side hustles, Anthony, while going through COVID. And then their side hustles start blowing up. Right? Doc. And then they start leaving their jobs for the side hustle. And now people are like, if you don't pay me right, I could do my side hustle. You gotta pay me right. See, your generation lives at a time where they used to reward us in a way where it made it almost impossible to leave your job, because you could, back in the day when I was growing up, if you were Black and middle class, because your parents worked at Lilly, they worked at GM, Rolls Royce, they worked at Chrysler. That was about it. Okay. They worked at one of these places, you was middle class, and they treated you like you was an NFL athlete, right? They cut you a bonus. You got a new car almost like every 2 years. You made a good salary. They had the pension. They don't do that anymore, man. So your generation knows that, man, I'm not going here to work for the rest of my life. What y'all gonna do for me? Because, and why do I have to work from 9 to 5 and come to this office and wear this? Why can't I wear what I want to wear, come to work when I want to work remotely? Why do you have to be lording over me and micromanagement, right? So your generation thinks differently, but a part of that is you have to think differently, because these jobs now have mastered making you work 39 hours or 32 so they don't have to give you benefits. And like Bezos does, he's mastering exhausting you because he doesn't want you to be long-term there. They want an influx of workers coming in because they don't have to take care of you the way they would if they really took care of you. That's how the models are right now. So they're not taking care of you. You have to be an entrepreneur. So COVID caused people to stop, sit back and think and reflect, evaluate what they're doing, and they're not coming back ever again the way they were working before. And Anthony, people literally who stayed on the front lines, you know what they got? Death. Many of them died for those companies delivering food on the front lines. Okay, it ain't worth that. Okay, so that's this very thing of side hustle, man, ends up helping people become entrepreneurs that they never really realized. So that's why I love what you're doing. But how people discover it is they hear somebody's story and they say, oh, they did it, I can do it. They struggled a little bit, but they just made it now practical to me. But COVID did that for a lot of Black people. The capital a lot of Black people got, right, was unemployment. A lot of Black people, they got real unemployment, and they got to sit back and start working so hard and looking around and messing around the house and getting into their hobbies, that little bit of capital. But like you said, Anthony, a lot of times, because of the story of our lives and the amount of money from generation we have set up, we fall hard when we step out there and have nothing to fall onto. We really do turn nothing into something. While you hear somebody else say that and they got $100,000 loan or $1 million, and we really didn't have anything and made something out of nothing, right? So you're exactly right when you say how hard it is and scary it is at times. But what happens when you don't do anything, right? You die that slow death and that slow frustration at the same time. So I'm sorry, man. You getting me hyped, man. Cut it out.
No. That's not to apologize for. You feel me? And I mean, it's this is the first of many conversations. Literally, I don't just say that just because that's what people say, but for real, I mean, the vision you talk about dreaming, man. But you just talked about this relationship between slavery and dreaming. I think about what I said at the beginning. Our methodology behind the side hustle economy company is premised on this idea of the three E's: exposure, education, and equipment. And like I said at the top, this is the best way we can expose because for a lot of people, they don't dream by any means because we have not seen something worth dreaming about. Someone's gonna watch this, they'd be like, dang, wow. Like that's a good response. And this is gonna make people sit. Think about it. When you leave a movie that was fired, you listen to an album that was fired, you just got a good conversation with somebody. What you doing? What you done? You just sit
That's
there.
right.
Sometimes you like, what did I just watch? What did I just listen to? What did I just see? And you take a moment. And you talked about the way in which COVID gave a lot of people the opportunity to take a moment for the first time in
Come
their
on, man.
life.
Come on.
And so this is nothing to apologize for. And my thing is I feel like I have a responsibility to create environments where people can take moments over and over and over again, right? And then how do we turn moments into movements, right? That move the masses, that move the people. So that you don't have to have this kind of cap, you don't have to have this kind of background, you don't have to have this kind of connection. It's by nature of being a person,
Mm.
right? You have that opportunity, right? What can I do to leverage my power to not level the playing field, but to elevate people that have never been elevated before. Everybody want to level the playing field. It's like, man. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that. The point is my last question to you, Doc. My last question to you is, again, the brand is called Make It Make Sense. I say that all the time.
Mm.
Make it make sense. That's a colloquialism within our community, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't know what it means, but we do. But it means something different based on what you've been through, based on your story. And so, man, I just want to ask one last thing, man. We ask it to everybody who comes on here. What does
Mm-hmm.
Make It Make Sense mean to you, Doc?
Make it make sense means this to me. It taught me that whatever I fear the most is typically the thing I'm called and created to do. Um, I started to learn that I had to make sense that what I'm fearing is holding me back. And I need to say, this thing that I'm fearing, what would it look like for me to do the very thing that fear is fixating on? Why am I fixed? Why is fear constantly telling me I can't do that? I discovered a secret, Anthony. It's because fear knows I'm created to do that. And so I now do the things that make me the most fearful because I've heard fear doing this work too much. I now know fear knows what it is you're created to do. It's the thing it's constantly telling you can't do, that can't happen for you. And whatever it fixates the most on is the most important. And so now that's how I make it make sense. When something's telling me I can't do it and it's giving me anxiety, I'm like, thank you, enemy. That now I know I'm supposed to do that. Now I know I'm created to do that. And I'm challenging you all to do the same thing. Whatever it is you're overwhelmingly fearful about that you can't do, and you're constantly hearing something say you can't do that, just know that fear is a liar. It's not that you can't do that. You're actually created to do that. And fear is fearful of you doing that. Because if it keeps you focused on that, guess who you're going to spend your time with? Fear. Okay. And when you overcome that, the opposite of fear is faith, right? The substance of things hoped for, evidence of things not seen. It's you don't even have the substance, right? What the rappers say, I turn something, nothing into something, right? Right. They're saying I operate by faith. I'm gonna take this, whatever it is, and even if it's as bad as product, I'm gonna take this product. I only got this much. I'm gonna turn it to this much, and then I'm gonna flip it. Okay. Well, the rapper's been telling us, all right. They're testifying that I'm gonna take this thing that I'm fearful of, that I feel I can't do, and that I constantly hear, and I'm going to say, well, wait a minute, maybe that I'm actually created to do that thing, right? So, Anthony, I thank you so much for having me on, man. Thank you too for this, man. One of the most powerful things that you can do, like you said, is elevate stories. The text, the biblical text. What I started to learn when I studied the history, brother, it's just Negroes telling their stories to other Negroes. That's all the whole book is about, man. Negroes passing down stories of their interactions with God with other Negroes. It's the whole Bible in Africa, right? The people of color passing down their stories and saying, this is what God did in our life, and passing down those stories. And it ain't Jesus, 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 and attacking people, but do this, do that. It's simply stop doing that. Okay. What's your story? That's how we overcome fear, by telling the story. So, man, I just want to say that thank you for having me on, and that this work is really essential alongside with anything you're doing. That's why right now LinkedIn and things like that are so important, because entrepreneurs have caught on to something. I can build my brand just by telling my story. Let me just tell my story. Let me stop acting like I this was so easy, and let me stop acting like I just got success out of nowhere. Let me tell other people, because sometimes people really are not just buying a product, they're buying you. They want the product because of you and who you are, right? And so it's very important to build that. I also want to say thank you for your vulnerability, because your generation talks about therapy like going to church, and I know, because of the time I used to live in, how important that is. That just you saying that is a beautiful and amazing thing, that another brother is like, oh, you went to therapy. Let me go check it out. They see you're successful. They see you're putting yourself out there, and now they get, oh, that's one of the pieces in his foundation. He added therapy too. Okay. And we don't understand. One of the greatest points you made, man, tonight was, just because you come from a good family, just because that you have a mom and dad, those are some of my people that have the biggest trauma, because they don't realize the things that they have gone through. And as Black people, they're like, how can I feel like I went through something when my parents done went through 60s and all kinds of stuff, and they were together and loved me. I feel guilty acting like I went through anything. The biggest detriment you could ever do to your life. Okay. It's, we all have trauma in different ways. And your generation, by the way, is going through the 60s all over again. Y'all going through stuff we can't even fathom, man. Social media, we could, the only people that had access to social media were celebrities. And when I was growing up, you see what happened to those celebrities as kids that had that much access? They, many of them committed suicide, killed themselves, were drug addicts from a different stroke. I mean, we can name all the shows where young kids had that much access and how it drove them crazy. And we want to know why you guys commit suicide on a whole nother level, depression, all these things, because you guys have access to things and the amount of knowledge that we can't even comprehend. When I did something stupid at school, Anthony, I might have dealt with it. And then if somebody called me, there was call waiting. If I even had it, they couldn't even get to me. I couldn't imagine trip, or I got in a fight in school, somebody videotapes it, and then it's looped for the rest of my life, bro. Like I couldn't imagine it. That every moment I'm interacting with people, it can be recorded and then played back to me forever, and I could see it and look up, and it's getting millions of hits. That people have access to me 24 hours a day to bully me if they want. I can't fathom that life, man. So that your generation is dealing with things on a level that it, you guys need mental health just as a support. We crazy and don't even know it. We got disorders and don't even know it. You know, when people are saying they're just mean, it's like, no, they're bipolar, right? Uh, he's going to change one day and have empathy and compassion. No, he's a sociopath. He'll never have empathy and compassion, right? Like, we don't understand these things. And so we are walking around dealing with people with no comprehension. And so the other thing that makes sense to me is this: people, get mental health, get mental health, go check it out, exercise your mind, and just see what it's like. Go fill it out. But I just want to let you know, uh, deeply with all of my heart, like, you know, it's not an option. This is something you want to have for your family, so you can communicate better with your kids and your partner and your spouse, and teach them how to do it. So it's not an option to get mental health. Get it.
No, that's a hell of a last word, man. I appreciate you for your time. Again, bro, this is the first time we talked literally, like years. And I think that's the beauty of purpose work, because purpose work makes you more proximal than like anything else. You know what I mean? And so I'm just thankful for your time, big dog. Again, brother Nathaniel McGuire, man, can you give them the information so that they can contact you in case they want to maybe book their first session with you? They want to start their
Yeah.
mental health journey with you. How can people tap in with you and your work, bro?
Simply go to nathanielmcguire.com. Nathanielmcguire.com. It's the easiest way to make an appointment. You can also call 317-572-7533. But I'll be honest, I'm kind of overloaded. So the best way to make an appointment is just to go online and make an appointment. Okay, so check me out, nathanielmcguire.com.
All right, cool. And we'll include all that in the details and such. But man, again, Doc, I appreciate you for your time. I'm gonna stop this live in a second and then stay on. I want to talk to you about a couple things. But nah, like I appreciate y'all for tuning in. Again, make sure you visit his website. We'll include it in the details on the video and in our email list to follow. This was yet another episode of Make It Make Sense Mondays. Make sure you check out our website for all the events coming up soon. If not, I'll see y'all next Monday evening for another incredible conversation. Y'all have a good one.